I want to ask you a couple of questions. First of all, give us a shout out. You have a fantastic record of your own that's on your website too, Rockstars. I just went and picked it up, so I recommend you do. Um, I think you just called it demos or something like that, but
Those are, yeah.
it's great, man. I was listening to you record. I'm like, holy shit, this sounds like Eddie Van Halen, man. This is really cool. Maybe without the fast finger work, but tonally, man, your guitar tones are just killer.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. That's a lifetime quest. Edward. That's there's several shows that would there's just several hours of what I could say as it relates to this. But basically, what those are is those are demos. That's exactly what they were. Those were from a while ago, and I've actually been working on a new record for quite a while, which is
cool.
its own story. But so. I got the studio for myself. As you know, I started out as a guitar player. I was playing long before I ever even heard who Edward Van Halen ever was. But the thing that happened to me, and this is apropos to this record I've been working on, which I kind of call my life's work. And thanks for pointing out that the thing about Ed for me was I never did get into the flash aspect of what it was that he was doing, although I can do that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I learned very early on that there was a much deeper thing going on. And basically, I had an experience happen to me in 1981 when I was 12 years old, and it happened in that bedroom that all the other musical things that happened to me in my life occurred from, whether it be leaning to a friendship with Dweezil Zappa, to knowing Frank and working on his music, to knowing Ed, becoming friends with him. It all happened from that childhood bedroom. And how it occurred, I do not know. But I can tell you, it all comes from that. Even Jack Tempchin's name,
Yeah.
So,
well, for me, it was getting Diver Down as a 8th grade graduation gift from my friend Jeff Jones. Shout out to you, Half Unit, if you ever hear my podcast one day.
Bless that guy. Well, yeah. So for what happened for me with Ed was I had an experience in that childhood bedroom where I had borrowed the record Fair Warning. Now, I tried to see Van Halen in 1980, but my parents wouldn't let me go. I saw Kiss, the original Kiss lineup in 79 with Judas Priest opening up for him. And now it's 1980 and it's like, why can't I see Van Halen? You let me see Kiss, but I don't remember why. So 1981 comes around, Unchained's on the radio. And I'd never heard anything like that tune. It just spoke to me. And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to miss them this time around. So then that was the first time I saw them, July 7th, 1981 at the St. Paul Civic Center. Totally changed my life. Still to this day, the best show ever. And I've been on the side of the stage. I had front row for 84. I mean, I've been to Van Halen rehearsals. This 1981 was the one for me. Okay. But what happened? I borrow Fair Warning from a friend. I'm listening to the record in my bedroom. The intro to the 4th song comes on called Hear About It Later. I'm standing there and all of a sudden I have an experience where something took my heart out from me. It made it separate from me. And I never had that experience before. And all of a sudden I'm experiencing and watching what is happening to my heart. It was the craziest thing. And I had an epiphany, or I had something came into my head at that time, and it said, you are going to spend your entire life finding out, searching for how to make this happen.
Mm.
You're going to follow this one guy, this one artist alone. There's a lifetime of seeking in just this one artist. And I made that declaration to myself at 12 years old in that bedroom at that moment.
Wow.
And so that's what I started doing. And what I learned right away was soon as MTV came out in the Midwest, which was in 82 around that time, 83, and I saw videos and things that, I went to a concert already. I saw them in 81, 82, 84, 86, just on and on and on. But the videos showed me something that I didn't catch that I caught at the live concert. And what I'm going to say right now is I have to deviate for 1 second.
Sure.
I was working at a music store in Minnesota called the Rock Guitar Center in 1983, 84, 85. This is before the Guitar Center ever came to that area.
Mm-hmm.
There was a store there. And so I was a young kid working there after hours for a little bit of money here and there just to hang around the big guys, you know?
Yeah.
And so there were guitar players that would come in, and one guy in particular that worked there was a phenomenal player. I mean, phenomenal, and could, really play, some of Ed's stuff. But what I started to realize is that all sorts of people come in and played the notes, but none of it felt right. And I paid close attention, like, why are these guys are so good and they're playing the notes and it's such, sounds like this and that, but nothing. It's flat. It's not hitting me at all. I started to have a realization in myself when I started seeing videos and things of Ed that I didn't catch at the live shows at that time in 81 and 82. I didn't have the epiphany yet. But in 84, I had front row at his feet and he put a pick in my hand. It was amazing. We had dialogue with the concert. He was talking to me. I was talking to him. Eye contact constantly coming over to me like he was just playing for me. That's how it seemed, okay? Now, let me go back a little bit because I know I'm jumping around a little bit. So I had something occur to me, and that was, didn't matter what the notes were playing. It didn't matter what his hands were doing. I started paying attention to his feet. His vibe, his essence was talking to me more from his feet than from his fingers and his hands. In other words, his feel was more dominant and more obvious and more clear for me to see by the way he moved his body and the way he connected to the ground.
That's fascinating. Yeah.
Now later, I've had that confirmed later through another guitar player. I actually had this talk with Ed. He knew all this. I talked to him about this. So it was in his feet. Now, if you watch Farm Aid, when he plays the solo in rock and roll, watch his feet. When you see the So This Is Love video from 81, watch him from the knees down or the waist down. It's all in his feet. That's where his attitude was at. That's where his essence came out for me. That's what I noticed. So now in 1984, here I am at his feet. That's, because the stage is at that level, right?
Yeah, right.
So everything he's doing is right in front of me. And all I'm looking at, other than when he'd come over, I'd see his face and his hands. I'd look at everything, of course, but his feet were talking to me. So I spent my life, 40 years, chasing Ed by following his feet. And the record that I've created from that, and he knew this story, and he was going to be the very first person to hear this record that I've been working on for almost 40 years, is almost done. And I never worked on it when I had the residue of another client on me. So that's why it's taken me so long. And then it wasn't always my main focal point, like through the 90s, like, oh, I got to make that record from when I declared when I was 12 years. Like that was out of my mind at that point. I was just trying to, move forward and getting this band off the ground and all that. I forgot my main mission, other than I've always kept, like, if you can think of the 10 Commandments where they part the Red Sea, that's how, ever since I made that declaration, I've tried to keep all music that I think would interfere with the purity of Ed, the way it affected my heart. I keep it at bay.
Yeah.
I've physically kept it at bay.
Well, Eddie was known to say that too. I remember hearing something about an interview with him where people asked him, like, what music you listen to, and he said, I don't really listen to anything else. I just listen to my own songs.
Yeah.
The interview or somebody joked about it as if it was like a like a myopic just putting a mirror in front of yourself thing, not taking influence. But I think maybe it's related to what you're saying, which is like, I don't want other stuff to, affect what I'm trying to do here. I want to really find my own voice in what I'm doing. Maybe that's more of the direction.
I think so. I think I agree with you. And the way I would relate it on my end is that, what have I been trying to do? Well, I'm creating the best single malt that I can. It's not a blended version. It's a single malt.
Right.
just for that analogy. But let me tie this in now to a
Yeah.
conversation a few years back. So the guy who has been my amp tech and good friend for 25, 26 plus years, a guy named Doug Anderson. And
I'll just say, having listened to your demos, he must be really good.
He's really good. And he grew up out with the brothers in Pasadena, and he's from that area and he's from that world. And he works on a lot of heavy duty guys, amps and whatnot. And so one day, one of his clients had called him, asking him, trying to search some stuff for some techniques for recording guitars, for guitar tones, for what he's about to work on. And so this guy calls me up, and this guy's name is Rusty Anderson. If nobody knows who Rusty Anderson is, he's one of the guys, he's the dark-haired guitar player who plays with Paul McCartney in his band. Okay. Rusty Anderson used to play in a local band with Van Halen back in the days. They were another band playing the clubs at the same time. So they used to do gigs together all the time. So this guy's calling, we're just talking about, how techniques that I'm using to record and this and that, sharing. And then I realized who he is. So at first I didn't know who he was. Then I realized, oh, this is the guy my amp guy talks about all the time. And I'm like, oh, you're that guy you grew up with. So now all of a sudden the topic changes from how do you record your stuff to you used to play in bands that used to do venues with Van Halen. So I shared with him all of my feet stuff, I think it's in his feet. He agreed with me 100%. He said, I used to think the same thing when I'd watch Ed on the side of the stage in the clubs. He said, I used to watch the way he moved around on the stage. He said he moved around like a boxer. The way his feet moved on the ground was most interesting to him. So now, so that to me was like, yeah, I'm not the only one here. Okay, so somebody who was there in the day can see what I'm saying, and he concurred. Then the last time that I spent time with Edward he was at my studio in 2014.
Oh, cool.
And we hung out for a few hours, and I shared this with him. He tripped out on it hardcore, but he told me I did used to take boxing. And one of the things he really loved to do that he told me was what he called slap fighting.
Wow.
So that was that was kind of part of him. So, however anybody wants to interpret what I've said, I don't know. It's just that's the truth behind why I think I catch Ed's feel in a particular way, because I wasn't going for any of the usual stuff that everybody went for. I was just going for this other thing. And so, it's nothing but gratitude, and at this point, I know when I was younger, I didn't really understand what am I searching for. Now I know it's just to exude the master's essence in one way or another.